Right. Call this meeting to order, the Meramec Valley Historical Society, 5:30 p.m. Roll call, Wayne is here, Jeff Titter, Bonnie Post, Dennis Oliver, Andy Nemeth, and Mr. Myers are all present. I'll move. I did attach the minutes to, I know they weren't sent out from our meeting in March. I know there's not an item on here to approve them, but does anybody have any questions or anything reference those minutes?
I was not here, so.
I don't think I was either.
Or-
So they look good.
Okay, that's good. All right, moving on to Red Cedar project update. Mr. Myers?
Yeah, hang on just a second, please. Got to make this public. Done. Okay, now we're good. All right, Red Cedar update. So I shared this with the board last night as far as just a few days ago. The tile is being installed in the floor and the wall areas. The finished carpentry and trim is underway. The finished paint is underway. The restored bar areas are to be installed, or bar windows rather, is to be installed the week of June 6th, so any day now. As of tonight, they're not installed yet, so it may be tomorrow. There is a well that is located just to the west of the front entrance in the grassy area that needs to be removed, and our city staff are working on coordinating the removal of that well here in the next couple weeks. There is a new electrical service that's waiting on some parts that are expected in the next 4 weeks. Final grading should be completed in about 6 weeks. Refinishing of the wood floor area is about 6 weeks away as well. The drop ceiling panels will be installed after that is done, following the sanding and finishing the floor so the dust particles don't get trapped up there in the ceiling. And then they'll be underway with the resurfacing of the parking lot. And we have received now the formal lease agreement with, as of today, this is new news,
Nice.
from MoDOT. That has been sent now to Jefferson City for their final signature. And so I would expect that hopefully still this week. Keep my fingers crossed. So that is, everything is about 7 weeks out to be completed for the construction phase. And then the museum exhibits and artifacts and that type of thing starts to be set up.
So did they bury the electrical service yet?
Yes, but that's part of the parts that are still waiting is the actual unit that all the electrical run from. So yes, the wires are buried, but not hooked up yet.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yes. Does anyone have any questions on the Red Cedar? Can you explain, I didn't know that you explained it at one, I don't know if it's the tourism meeting, but the concrete area that's
Absolutely.
going on to the east of the building?
Right, that's a question in a lot of people's mind as they drive by. They see that and they're wondering if we're building a big addition. But that is for future use of a pavilion site. So right now, the scope of this phase of the project does not include the pavilion. The budget just wouldn't call for it. So it was, the alderman decided that it would be wise to go ahead and prepare for it. So that's what we've done. And the elevations will all kind of change around those structures, that concrete structure that exists now. And so you'll see the parking brought up to that level. And then it kind of stair steps off in towards the back. That'll have a lot of vegetation screening. And then some stairs and then a ramp also that'll take people to the back of the building. So that's another thing that's yet to be designed as far as what will that backyard area be. So there's a lot of ideas that have been floated, but nothing's landed yet. So right now that is just for future pavilion. But the infrastructure is there to support performances of band, teaching tools, that type of thing in terms of the electrical and the sound kind of things that we can hook up,
Okay, great.
okay?
A quick question. Since we're talking about Red Cedar, and I watched tourism meetings last two as well. There was discussion, I think Dennis had brought it up, the old sign that was out here, and they were talking about putting it up for surplus auction.
The old red cedar sign?
The old marquee sign that was up here, the digital sign here at City Hall.
Oh,
And we had, I thought, talked about moving that down that direction, but now there's discussion of,
We had actually taken a vote, and Herb was here at the time, and it was decided with Herb to put that in storage and let us possibly use that down there.
it is in storage, okay, that's first. Second
Thank you.
is, it has not been determined what the use of it would be. There's no formal authorization to salvage or sell it. That has not been ordered. However, I will tell you that there's a reason why that sign was replaced, because it wasn't very readable. I mean, it could read.
Wasn't very readable because of the size, the speed, and the distance from the road. Down
Absolutely.
here, the speed's going to be less, and the distance from the road could possibly be less, depending on where we put it.
Right. I've been in this business for a long time in terms of the sign business. What is available today that could be there in the future, there are a lot better signs that you can get with a lot higher quality to set next to a $2.25 million project.
And I think we all understood that at the
That
time.
one, I think, if I could finish, that one, I think, is going to detract from the red cedar. Personally, that's my personal advice, but
And
I'm not deciding.
I don't know that, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's not, when we had this discussion several months ago, it was, I mean, Herb, you were in the meeting. None of that was brought up. It was, we could take a look at it. We could see what it would take to get it up and going and put it out there. It would be a cheaper way of going since we're spending $2.3 million. Do they really want to spend the money to put up another electronic sign that's brand new? Because I'm
understand.
sure it's not cheap.
What
So-
I'm telling you is that decision's not been formalized. Mr. Nemeth, am I right?
I haven't had any discussion regarding that sign. I would say that on two sides of it, yeah, it's in storage and it's safe, and as of this moment, there has been zero board discussion or even action regarding it. So if that was said at the tourism meeting, that may have just been a point
It
of.
wasn't a tourism meeting, it was here at the Meramec Valley Historical Society meeting. I would really like to see the minutes from that past meeting to see what was stated, because I know that, I just don't want to see us
Well,
lose a sign.
but where was it, what meeting was it stated that it was going to surplus?
I thought it was at a tourism committee meeting, not this most recent one, but the previous.
So what I would say is, we shouldn't get rid of it until we have some kind of a determination as to, because Steve's not wrong.
No,
Like,
he's
if we're,
not.
If we're spending, well, we'll end up probably being close to $2.5 million. Do we want a 30-year-old $5,000 sign out?
Not 30-year-old.
Or what, how, it's old, like,
15,
whatever that
14,
is, right?
15 years old.
So Steve's point is extremely valid.
Mm,
Like,
it is.
we don't want to showcase that much money, and then now, do we want to put a sign now and spend 50 grand? Probably not. We probably want to wait a little bit, but maybe we don't. But there is probably something that needs to come to, either this committee needs to come to an agreement,
I think
and-
this
and-
committee already did come to an agreement. That's
well,
the point.
Well, no, for what's existing now. What I'm saying is, maybe not this meeting, but maybe there isn't at our next meeting in 3 or 4 weeks or whenever that is, maybe we need to get past and say, look, we want administration to go and find out what it costs for that size or maybe a little bit smaller, or whatever we deem, to at least get the cost comparisons. Because if we salvage that, let's say you get 3 or 4 grand, I don't know what you get for those things, and it's only 20 grand for the right size sign, maybe that is worth doing to upgrade it. But this is just a discussion. I've never even heard of this until tonight. So under my understanding, the board has had 0, and the board would have to authorize that. So we have never had that come to the board.
So I guess my issue, and I think Bonnie's issue, and tell me if I'm misspeaking, is that it seems like we discuss this stuff thinking it's going to go to the board to be further discussed, and then 2 months later we come back in and something's changed, and that's the first time we hear of it, and we don't,
Well, the board hasn't done anything.
I understand that, but we as a committee, with Herb, when he was mayor, sat right here and discussed this very issue and came to a vote and a decision on it.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden Herb's gone and
Well,
nothing's been done, and we don't know nothing. And
well, no,
I'm not.
No, that's
don't-
not the
don't-
case. But that's not the case. What you're saying, the case, it's currently in storage, sitting there waiting.
I understand
and
that,
it's-
but now all of a sudden we've got other committees.
Let
and that
Mr.
come
Oliver
up.
finish, and then.
Yeah, we've got other committees coming up. It's a total different conversation tonight than what we had 4 months ago,
And we
3-4
have,
months
we
ago.
have tourism and us having discussion about the same thing, and there's sort of no common thread.
Right.
Well, so what I would say is, in the beginning, technically tourism owns that sign, right? They paid for it, they paid for this one, all of that stuff. The second side of it is, I don't think anybody's overturned your decision, at least to my understanding. I didn't even know that was said at a tourism meeting, so I appreciate you bringing that up. So in my opinion, I would say the president or vice president of this board should get with, is it Jen that's in charge of tourism? Should get with Jen and find out how that conversation progressed. And actually, the better part is why it even came up. Because there's really no reason to have that discussion yet, because nobody's made any. The only decision that was made was to sit it in storage so we could potentially use it at Red Cedar. To my understanding, that was the decision that was made via this board.
That is
And
correct.
I thought it was approved. I don't remember if we approved it in administrative. I don't think it technically came to the board, but it was held. And there's a lot of people that said we would hold it. So we should not be salvaging it. Maybe that was a preemptive discussion to see how much they could get for it. I have no idea. But I would recommend that, Jeff or Donna have a discussion with Jen Blakely, or grab the minutes and find out how that discussion went. I don't know how it went. But my opinion would be that for now, we should just hold it. But I think we should, Steve's point is extremely valid, which I don't think we had talked about before, what would we would want to showcase in front of Red Cedar? I don't know that answer, but that's something we can discuss at future meetings to ensure that we're making the right decision. But for now, from what I know, that sign's sitting there and it's not going anywhere. So, and you're right, there is goofy things maybe tourism didn't know or didn't understand. And it's good that you watched the meeting, because maybe we wouldn't have known that even happened at the tourism board.
I have a couple thoughts that I'd like to share. One is, I think you should consider your options. And we don't know what those are yet until we search for them, and we have not searched for them yet. There's been no order to do so. The other thing is that these are recommending committees. These are not, you vote on it and that's the way it's going to go committee. This is a recommendation that you send to the Board of Aldermen. They're the ones that make the final decisions, and there's been no discussion on it yet. So your recommendation still stands.
And even if tourism wanted to do that, they would have to come to us.
And I think we all understand that, and we all get that.
Sure.
I think the one point that is frustrating for us is this isn't the only thing that this has happened on. It just, and I don't know if it's our committee not doing something correctly or if it's getting lost in translation between us and the board. But we vote on something, and I don't mean to throw anybody personally underneath the bus, but I mean, we voted on shelving and that took a long, long time, and at least it didn't get back to the board as a whole as to what was going on. I think maybe Donna had some information there, I don't know, but, just, it seems like we're the last ones to know a lot of things. And I think that's what's frustrating for us.
I mean, look, I think there's probably a lack of communication between boards, and tourism is the one that.
There's always been a lack of communication between boards, but and Andy, no offense.
You can say
But
whatever you want.
that's what we count on you for, is to take what we discuss here to the board and then have what the board discusses brought back to us. And I understand you weren't at the meeting that we discussed this particular thing, but I
was.
think.
When we put it in storage, I was at that meeting.
Oh, I thought
When
you
we
said you
authorized-
weren't. I'm sorry.
No. There was confusion on which board had said the salvage thing.
Okay.
No, I was at that.
Okay.
And the board is fully aware that that thing's in storage.
Okay, because that,
And
I apologize, maybe I
I think
said that.
one reason why there might be miscommunications is that this board has not had regular meetings.
yep.
As this committee has not had hasn't had set regular meetings, so we've missed months. And I think a lot of that lack of communication or miscommunication is because we haven't met, and over time you forget what has been mentioned, what hasn't been mentioned.
Right.
And I think for this committee, one thing is we try to set a schedule and meet on those set schedules. Even if we're here for 15, 20, 30 minutes, just to have a short discussion on what the progress is or what we need to do or what has been discussed at the Board of Aldermen level or the committee level. I think one thing is it's important that we have set meetings and meet regularly.
Yeah.
And I would just add, I guess, and then I don't really have much else to say on it. I think sometimes it can also appear that there's weird things going on when it can just be a simple mistake too. They could have simply had that discussion and forgot or not realized, or maybe they just, I don't know. I guess I'll have to watch. You said it wasn't the last one, but the one before maybe,
Yeah, they just had one
a couple days ago.
yesterday, yeah.
It was the one
And
before.
it was the one before that.
Okay, I'll watch that tomorrow, but I would say too that sometimes it's just people making mistakes. And I understand why you would feel sometimes that there's maybe a little bit more behind it or a lack of communication or whatever. But I know for a fact that sign, my understanding is it shouldn't be going anywhere. I will validate that at the next Board of Aldermen meeting and make it explicitly clear that that sign for now doesn't go anywhere without board approval, just to make sure. I'm pretty sure that exists now, but with the change in guard, maybe we need to ensure that that is 100% clear.
That would be appreciated.
But I am glad that we had this discussion because I hadn't really thought of Steve's point, which was, do we want to put a 15-year-old sign in front of a $2.5 million building?
But you do have to take baby steps, and if we can't afford a big new sign right now, it may be the best that we can do. If it's
Agreed.
within capability of distance to run the communication to it, maybe you don't put it right next to the building, but maybe it's closer to Wintech.
Sure.
But at least it catches the people on that side of town to give them the information, especially about Red Cedar.
I'm not saying we shouldn't do that by any means. If you guys decide that that's what you want to do, absolutely, like that's what we should do. I'm just saying I think that, at least I hadn't thought of what Steve said about potentially would we want to get something higher quality. I don't know. So you guys tonight, if you wanted to, and we don't have to tonight, you could say that we want administrative to go out and find what it costs for a higher quality version of that same sign.
I think it's been made clear we don't have that money right now.
Well, the city might.
I don't know that we're asking for a new sign right this minute with
No.
Red Cedar.
No, but what I'm saying is, we don't know what it costs until we have somebody go and research. That's all. I'm not saying to buy one. I'm just saying, At some point, and again, doesn't have to be tonight, you can do it at the next meeting or whatever, but at some point, we should at least investigate potentially what those differences might be.
So,
That's the only thing I'm gonna say.
so if we were to do that, we could make a motion to have the Board of Aldermen,
Now, to have Steve,
check into what it would cost to get this sign workable and what it would cost to have a new state-of-the-art sign
of similar size,
of
maybe.
similar size put in.
You can absolutely give him that direction this evening.
I would like to make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion for administration to look into what it would cost to,
Steve Myers.
okay, Mr. Myers, to look into
Sorry.
what it would cost to install and get the existing sign in storage in working order, or the cost of a new sign.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I have some questions.
Yes.
Sure.
You say to get a new sign, right? So that's a wide
Wide open.
open berth. So there are such a variety of, it's the lumens, it's the brightness, it's the capabilities. So I will look at several different options, and I'll do a good, better, best analysis, okay? And then the capabilities of them, I'm gonna, you don't want to get something that's like what you've got. You want to get something that's modern technology.
Correct.
I'll tell you that it's very laborious and cumbersome to change the messages on the old sign. The one that I have now, I noticed there was an error the other day coming down the highway. I stopped in. 5 minutes later, I got back in my car and went on. And that's even logging on to the computer. It's that easy. So just modern technology has got such great advances.
Sure.
And I want you to be open-minded, because some of you think that old sign is the best that we can do right now, maybe. I don't know.
No, I just didn't want to lose that and not have something else.
Right, and neither does anybody else, okay?
Yep.
So I will check into it, give you a good, better, best analysis, and we'll go from there.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good discussion.
Anything more on the red cedar?
No. Very good points, Dennis.
All right, Director of Tourism appointment? Does anybody have any update on that, Mr.
He was
Neiman?
appointed last night. I chatted with her for a minute before I left for the evening. Seems fired up to, I think she's started now. It's what Heather said, so I don't know if that was today or maybe next Monday or whatever, but she seems great, so I can't wait to meet her, and in the next couple of weeks, I'll take some time to sit down with her.
Her name is Kelly O'Malley, and she comes from an entertainment background, from restaurateur background. She has retail sales background, school teacher background, and lives in Labadee. She's a local. I tell you, we interviewed a lot of different candidates for this position, and she rose to the top. So I'm excited about her getting started. I think she's going to be a tremendous fit.
That's huge.
Good, all right. Thank you.
She will-
She went to, the Chamber of Commerce had a united meeting between Eureka and Pacific today at Six Flags.
So mad I missed that.
And she got to go, and Kim Barfield, and Kim introduced her. So her personality is very contagious, and I think you're going to love her.
Great,
Next meeting, moving forward, she comes to our meetings.
She will.
Thank you.
Yeah, she starts Monday, officially.
Thank
awesome, great. Thank you. Grants, grants update. Mr. Myers,
Yes, sir.
I know that there were some grants out there that were applied for or applying for. Can
There
you
was
just give us
a
a?
Humanities, Missouri Humanities Council grant that we applied for $2,500, and that is to have a program in December. We are signed up to have a traveling diorama, is what it's called, for Ulysses S. Grant's Life and Times, basically. And these are those pull-up banners that are on individual stands that I think there's 8 of them, 8 or 10, and they would sit in whatever form you set them for people to have a traffic flow around them. You can read front and back of each of the banners. But in addition to that, we wanted to maybe get a live actor who portrays Ulysses S. Grant to come and give a matinee performance to children and then also an evening performance to adult crowd to add to that. And that's what this grant would cover. The promotional aspects of it, the fee of the actor, who is a gentleman named Stan Prater, who we've already got booked for the event. And so it's just to make it a really fun thing. And that's a recurring program that we want to have at the Red Cedar, to bring new interest in folks that want to come for special events, and then they see what we have while they're there.
Are there any other grants that are a possibility out
Well,
there?
today I attended a symposium kind of thing on the St. Louis County Municipal Park Grant. That commission their window of opportunity is opening. Grants need to be submitted by the end of August. And so I went today and just went through the grant application point by point with the people who judge them. And so the project that we had applied for last year but did not win was the bathrooms at Jensen Point on the lower level. And it's possible that we would apply for them again this year. However, there's more money than that would take. We can apply for 2 this year. We can't apply for a third until the paving is done at Red Cedar. So once that one's done and closed out, we can apply for 2. So I think the timing will be perfect for that to be able to happen. So there are other projects within St. Louis County. I know the Great Rivers Greenway property is about to be conveyed to the city of Pacific formally. That certainly is in St. Louis County. It needs transportation to be able to get over the Brush Creek. So that might be a bridge project there. So I know there's competing requests that are pending. So it has not been decided what project we will apply for.
Okay.
There's also RTP grants that are Recreational Trails Program grants. And there's a goal of having a trail go past the Red Cedar and Jensen Point properties. There's also a possibility of having a trail connecting Jensen Point to Red Cedar that would go behind the Wintech building. There's any number of possibilities, but and grants. I mean, there's a lot of them.
Right. Okay.
So we'll be going after more.
All right, great. Any questions for Mr. Myers on the grant? Does anyone, Mr. Nemeth or Mr. Myers, do you have anything on the budget?
Do you?
I don't have it with me.
Okay, so I have a copy I will pass out to you. It's on the Meramec Valley Historical Society. There's under general expenditures, you'll see 3 entries, and there's a miscellaneous category of $33. I'm not sure what that covers. Supplies in office, $204, and supplies general, $1,010. And this total is $1,247 budget for the year. This goes to the board for approval next 2
Next
weeks?
meeting.
Or the
Next meeting. We just had the first
Next meeting?
open session about it yesterday.
And I'm sorry, did you say that was for this committee?
Yes.
Okay.
When it comes to, and I watched some of the budget meeting, and Mr. Nemeth, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, most of the operation of the Red Cedar will be out of tourism, correct?
A good amount of it,
Good
yes.
amount, okay. All right.
I don't remember where the director's payroll's coming out of, but I know a good majority of the operating of the Red Cedar is coming out of tourism.
Okay.
Does that mean that the partnership's not getting their 60,000 this year?
What?
Does that mean the partnership's not getting their 60,000 this
I
year?
don't know how long that contract was.
It's a year at a time.
Okay.
I mean, they hired a director, so I would assumed that that's gonna not be 1 year and fire the guy, but
I know, but.
All right, any questions on
I
the
can give
budget
you the
information?
president's number to the partnership.
Tourism must have increased their budget quite a bit.
Sorry, Jeff.
No, you're fine. There's one question I'll ask Mr. Roth is, I know there's, from when the genealogy group merged in, or came into the city, there was some funds there. I'm just interested to see where that line item is. There was some, that they had some bonds and stuff that,
I thought it was there last year in
Yeah,
the
so-
itemized list. I thought I remember us talking
yeah,
about this
it
last
was, so
year.
it's,
I'll ask Steve.
so.
I have
if
a
you would-
meeting with him Friday morning.
Okay, if you would, that'd be great, where those funds are.
And what was it again?
It was funds that the museum and genealogy had. The museum had a fund and the genealogy had a fund. The museum's money came from when they used to sell calendars and things like that. The genealogy, they used to have dues before they became a city committee and they had some CDs and stuff that they had that were cashed out. And it was all supposed to be in a separate line item. It was several $1,000s, I believe. I cannot remember
I can
But,
definitely ask that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Anything else on the budget? All right,
I think the only additional thing I was going to say on the budget is, I do notice year after year, and I don't know if it's, this board isn't submitting anything, or if there's just not a budget for it. But maybe this year, as we get kind of close to that November, December timeframe, if you guys believe that you need a budget of 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever that number is, and really coming up with some, specific criteria as to why you need it or what it would be used for, I think you can start getting a good budget to work with. Now, obviously, those still has to be approved by the board in the end, anything that you spend, but even if you need stuff now, we'll still go out for the most part, depending on the cost of it, and get it, but there probably is a point where we should make a note that in that November timeframe, December, we should really try to put some numbers to if we need a budget for the committee. I just know it's never really had one. So again, we don't have to talk about it tonight, but maybe
Right.
mental note that in November, we should probably start having
Start look-
those
Okay.
discussions.
moving on to miscellaneous. One thing I did, we meet with Derek Pryor last week. He's the one that's kind of designing the displays for the museum. And met with him, trying to determine some artifacts that can be displayed. So I found the inventory of what's in all the bins at the Wintech building. So we'll be going through those when he returns from a trip. And I found some pictures that he might use for the displays and stuff. So I'm kind of starting to work with him to try to get items for the displays in Red Cedar, and so he can know what he's designing and things like that. Does anyone else have anything for discussion?
I wanted to ask, because I haven't been to a couple meetings recently, but as you guys have gone through what you have we started to work with, I can't remember the gal's name that was helping with that?
Victoria.
For Udi?
Yeah. Has that been helpful? Like, things are going well with that? Trying to,
We have not met with Dr. Udi in quite a while. I mean, the last time we had any interaction, or that I've had any interaction with her, was when she was on Zoom talking about some of the mission statements. And I think the last that we left it was the collection management plan, trying to start working through that. But I have not had any interaction with Dr. Udi.
all right, I'll ask Steve about that too, because I thought that was part of the reason that we brought her on, I thought, was to help start to categorize and go through and figure out what's useful and what may not be,
Right.
Those kind of things. And if that's not happening, I added that to my list for Steve too on Friday, so.
Yeah.
Like, am I right? Like that, is that what
Yeah, that's
you thought too?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
And like I said, the last that we left it was with a collection management plan, trying to develop that, and haven't heard anything further on that, so.
Okay. I'll let you guys know.
Okay, appreciate it.
Are you, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's all right.
I was just going to say, next week, are the Wednesday meetings still going on at Red Cedar?
Yes,
Do you know if you're having one next week?
should,
Okay,
9 o'clock.
okay. I'll be there next Wednesday. I haven't been in there in a long time, so.
You're going to like it.
All right.
Anything else, Mr. Nemeth?
Oh, I'm good, thank
All
you.
right. Bonnie, did you have?
I'm going to ask a favor. I'm not saying, so our meeting tonight was not on the website
I know.
calendar.
I noticed that earlier today. It wasn't for me to do. I don't know why it was not, but I already talked with Ms. Barfield about it this afternoon, and so we're going to look into why that happened and try to avoid it in the future.
Okay, just so folks can tune in if they want to.
Right.
So, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Dennis, do you have anything?
I don't think so, no. I'm trying to think, but no.
Come on, you got something.
I probably do, but might be better off not.
One thing that I want to challenge this committee and the members is for our next meeting, that we get a list of what our future is, what our goals are for this committee, where we see ourselves with the opening of Red Cedar. What is our role to assist the tourism director? What is our role to promote, to help promote? I mean, yes, we're volunteers, but we're still a committee that can help promote the Red Cedar, help support the director, what our role is going to be going forward. I think that's going to be important for us and for the city to know where we fall into this.
And maybe I'm totally off base on this, but I would almost envision us to be kind of like the maybe board of directors for the museum. So that way, kind of like, Washington's got a board that they kind of help work through and figure out what displays are going to be there next year, just kind of help the director with the mission and how to proceed and go forward.
I mean, I think that's a good vision. I think that's a start.
Still thinking.
Okay.
But like I said, it doesn't need to be this meeting, but next meeting, let's come up and draft something that we can submit to the administration and the board of aldermen to say, this is what we see as our role in support of the Red Cedar and where we go from whenever the building opens.
Yeah, and I also think too that, and with the gal being so new, she may not have known about this meeting, but I think we should probably figure out how to have her at these meetings.
Yes.
And tourism, like kind of doing that. But there is something to working hand in hand and ensuring that, we're not only assisting from this board, but also giving her the freedom to do what she, and then coming to us and saying, here's all the ideas, or, here's all the next year things that we're going to do, or kind of to your point, whatever we call it, board of directors or whatever it is, there is something to also, well, none of us are museum experts, and I'm hoping that she kind of becomes that, or maybe she already is. There's still something good about running that stuff by, not an approving committee really, but to say, here's what we're going to do. What are your guys' thoughts, and kind of going back and forth with that, I think absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Because once you're in that, like any job, sometimes you don't see everything around you. And having kind of that time to flush those ideas out, I think is also exceptionally helpful. And just the years of people who've lived here, like this board has an enormous amount of years in Pacific, that knowledge is also extremely helpful. That's where sometimes I feel I don't or can't provide a lot of input being here 6 years. And I think that's where this knowledge base is exceptionally helpful with that, so. 6.5, sorry.
With that goals and objectives kind of for next time, can we also possibly touch on, clarify if our member number has been taken from 9 to 5? Are we a committee of 5 with our liaison as a voting member, Board of Aldermen? Will
So,
there be clarification?
Yes, and I think
Coming.
Mr. Nemeth can probably,
yeah, so last night at the board, we actually had a lot of discussion towards the end. So I think it's the last 15 minutes of the meeting, if you fast forward, it's when Alderman Lesh starts talking. There's a lot of discussion surrounding why certain boards have votes and some don't. We believe P and Z is state statute, but Attorney Jones is going back and validating that. I don't know why I have a vote on this board. I don't know if it's necessary. One point somebody did bring up is if there, for some reason, wasn't a quorum, having an alderman with a vote satisfies the quorum in some respects. But very rarely are things that need to be voted on this board super time sensitive, whereas P and Z is extremely time sensitive in a lot of things. So if you want to watch the next Board of Aldermen meeting, Attorney Jones is supposed to be coming back to us, almost with a presentation kind of, or an education, on why that exists now, the numbers, all that good stuff. Because I don't understand why the alderman on this board doesn't, or does, and Park Board doesn't. So he's going to come back with some of that information, because I'm just as clueless on it as everybody else at the moment, so. But we're going to go and get that understanding.
Thank you.
no, and I can explain, I mean, I wrote the original ordinance for the museum back in 2006. And the reason why the Board of Aldermen liaison was a voting member at the time was because a lot of our members were made up of, at the 9, several were out-of-town residents. They had a connection to the city, they had an vested interest in the city, but the discussion was that if they're going to, if the majority of the board was outside the city members, some people wanted the alderman to have a voting stock in the committee because they were part of the city. They were residents of the city.
Sure.
So I would say that that's why it was developed at the time, because of different, I don't want to say pressures, but different reasons. I don't think it's necessary at this point, because I think we're well established now. It was just that newness of, okay, what is this committee going to do? Because, I mean, a lot of the committees were set up, had to be residents of the city. The museum committee was not set up that way. They could have outside members who had vested interest in the history of the city. And it was kind of mirrored off previously to that was the cemetery committee. The cemetery committee, their alderman was also a voting member. But now the cemetery committee has been disbanded, so it was just left up to now the museum was the only one that had that. I don't think it's necessary anymore.
Are we all we all live in city limits now?
I do not,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I would agree with you, Jeff, that it's not necessary, and my thought process is, no offense, but you have a vote whenever we present something to the board, you get your vote. So in essence, you have 2 votes, and I don't feel that is necessary.
It's not really 2 votes.
Yeah, well.
That can be debated.
Yeah.
All right, so, but I think Mr. Nemeth is correct. Mr. Jones is supposed to come back, and I would sure to guess that part of our committee will probably be changed. Like I said, state statute, I think, governs the P and Z part, but I think for our.
But if you guys are okay with it, and you don't need to make a motion, I guess, but I'll bring that to the board next week or in 2 weeks. If you're okay with me not having, I don't really care either way personally, but if you guys are okay with that, I'll make that recommendation at the next meeting, because It's more up to you guys. It's
Yeah.
not really up to me.
I mean, that would be my recommendation, would to eliminate,
I'll make a motion to eliminate the liaison's voting
member.
member.
I thought you were going to stop at liaison.
Thought about it, but I thought better of it.
I have a motion to recommend to the board to eliminate the alderman liaison to having a voting stake in this committee. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right.
Because I still have a vote, Dennis. And I will also, I added that to my list for Steve on Friday too, so.
All right.
Okay.
We currently have 5.
Yes.
and
Because
then-
Donna's not here, right?
Right,
Yeah.
and then you,
Yeah.
so that would be
And
good.
what, now that it's 5, is it 3 for a quorum or is it?
3 for quorum.
Okay.
Yes, 3 for quorum.
We should easily be able to get 3 anytime, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and most of the time, like I told Jeff, I am forgetful, like you said. So.
We all are.
I try to put it on my calendar, but sometimes, you go home, you get busy and you don't. So I always have my phone on me. You can always go, hey, are you coming to this meeting? And I'll jump in the car and come up.
One more question.
Yes.
Is our election going to be next meeting?
Yes, they're normally in June, or the election of officers are normally held in June, but we will push it to July. Hopefully Donna will be back here, so we'll have all members here then, so.
So next meeting would be,
It should be July 13th. If we go stick with the second Wednesday of the month, it should be July 13th. I know July's vacation time for some, but does 5:30 still work for everybody?
5:30 is great.
I will not be in town.
What?
So you will be elected president next time.
Congratulations.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. But no, I won't be here.
Okay, all right. So tentatively, July 13th at 5:30 here. So is there any more discussion? If not, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you.